Hi folks, I'm Geek here. Unfortunately, we did not have the microphone turned on, so we didn't get any audio until about the 5-minute 48-second mark. But if you fast forward to there, we do have audio, if low, because I switched to ambient. Sorry for the inconvenience. Continue.
So in this case, as the example, one of the initial emails of somebody trying to
they got to have on.
Trying to start the conversation, so they can slide this person, Jane in this case, the bank account information to wire the money to. Now, it's interesting because these are apparently amazingly effective. Because every month or two, I'll read something somewhere about somebody that was caught doing this. Actually falling for it and wiring money to some account, which they may or may not be able to recover. Then, of course, there's malicious spam, or contracted to the word mouse spam, the single word mouse spam. So that's how you hear me refer to it. This is spam that is pushing some sort of malware. All right? It can be attached to the email itself, or the malware can be a link in the email that's posted on a fraud server that the criminals have set up specifically for the purpose, or it could be on a legitimate website that's been compromised with associated malware. Here's an example of mouse spam. This is one I got on Monday. And quite literally, that's what we saw. So I don't know if Sophia Lee up there, this email is apparently from, but that's an actual real email account that was compromised, or if that's a spoofed address. I've seen both. And then the malware is attached as a zip archive to the email, and it could be a Windows executable, it could be a Microsoft Office document with malicious macros, or it could be a JavaScript file. And in the case of an Office document, or a JavaScript file, or Visual Basic file, or any other of the formats that you can have, will actually reach out and grab malware from somewhere else and install it. That's typical from what we see for mouse spam on a daily basis. But what about Emotet? What is Emotet, and why am I talking about it? Since all malware is a bite. Emotet is banking malware. It's Windows-based malware that we first saw in sometime in 2014. I want to say the summer of 2014. When we first saw it, it was seen in Germany and Switzerland. So it would all be written in German. And we still see actually on the my March 1st blog post on malwaretrafficanalysis.net, you'll see some examples in the stuff that we got that I have documented there on the 28th of February on, Wednesday, was about half those are all German language. So it's kind of interesting that we still see that. Now, I definitely will see that when I'm looking through, trying to get examples of Emotet, mouse spam examples that are pushing Emotet. And it can also retrieve other malware, and I've definitely seen that before. Back in November and December of 2017, last year, it was typical that in my lab environment, when I would infect a Windows host with Emotet, that we would also see Zeus Panda Banker, which is another information stealer, another banking Trojan. So it was kind of weird. And the traffic that I posted on my blog on March 1st actually has another piece of malware. I wasn't able to determine what it was, but it was sitting in the program data folder. Just some randomly named executable that showed up as malicious on VirusTotal, but I wasn't able to determine either on my own or if my company stools exactly what it was. So Emotet distribution is very simple. You have a link in the mouse spam. On that link, you click it and you'll get a Microsoft Word document. This document will have macros. When you enable the macros, you get Emotet. It will grab the Windows executable that is Emotet, the Emotet binary, and it will use PowerShell to actually grab it, download it, and install it on your computer behind the scenes. Here's an example from yesterday. So this is pretty interesting. It will almost always be some sort of scan or document or receipt or something, anything to get you to click the link to download this document. Some sort of financial usually. Now, as of Wednesday of this week, I think it was first reported actually yesterday that I started seeing Twitter notifications about this. PDF attachments are appearing in these emails. So the PDF attachments are basically just the same message that's in the email, but they have the same link to the malware, to the Word document. So in this case, you see that doc has you click on it, you would go to a legitimate website that's compromised, where they set up a new directory called new-order, and that would give you the Word document. If you look at the PDF file, you would find basically the same link and generally the same message. Now, this is what we're looking at from yesterday. So it's interesting. If you're paranoid about stuff of this nature like I am, you would see this. And if it came from somebody named Mitchell, you would say, Mitch, please. I'm not going to click that. If you do click it, you get a download for the document. You open the document, and this is not the only template that's currently being used, but it's the one that I see most often. It always has invoice number 4564 up in the upper right-hand corner. And so these documents, they will tell you you've got to enable the content to actually see it. And what's interesting here is it's trying to get you to click on the button to enable macros, because by default, the default installation of Microsoft Office does not enable macros by default, which is one of the few good things I can say about security for earlier versions of Microsoft Office. If you do, the interesting thing is the document doesn't change. So I've known people that have been hit by these types of documents before, and nothing would happen, so they would close it, they would open it, and they would enable macros again, do it 3 or 4 times. And as a result, they would get the same malware coming through, triggering alerts in your organization. You can find out it's somebody named Mitchell, and you will say to yourself, Mitch, please. So with these Word documents with the macros, in some cases, other campaigns that use the same type of technique, they will have it say you cannot view the macros, that you cannot use Microsoft Word to view the macros and see what they contain. However, with Emotet, there's no problem. You can click on View Macros, and you'll see a list. And this list will consist of a number of random characters for each of the stuff in the macros, and it's all Visual Basic Script. So if you were to edit any one of these to actually view them, you would see highly obfuscated Visual Basic Script. And it's not just, it's hard for me to deobfuscate this stuff because it's still a ton of work. So usually if I'm curious, because there's usually more than one download site for each document, to download the follow-up Emotet binary, the Windows executable, to actually effectively view. So instead of trying to deobfuscate the Visual Basic Script, I will tend to just update the Windows host file, and for each domain that I get, I'll go ahead and make it, send it to 127.0.0.1 and see what comes up next. And basically just convert my VMs to a clean state and build up that host file and see how many hosts that an individual document is sending, calling out to try and retrieve that Emotet binary. But that's the Emotet that we see on a day-to-day basis. What does it look like overall? If you look at the subject lines are many and varied. They're all some sort of document or invoice or scan type thing. Usually involving some sort of payment or money. So as a researcher at Palo Alto Networks, I've got access to our threat intelligence tool, which is called Autofocus, which is not really important to this conversation, except to say that I can look across metadata on malicious traffic across our entire customer base. So I can look at anything that we have tagged as identified as Emotet. This could be the Word documents, or it could be the Emotet binary. But in this case, I'm going to look specifically for the Word documents. And it's always coming through unencrypted HTTP over port 80. And I'm going to look for a file URL that has any value. I'm going to look for a file URL that doesn't contain the word unknown. And so when I did this on Tuesday of this week, here's a small example of 6 items that I found. And this is out of hundreds of hits. Some of them were duplicates. Many of them were actually duplicates. Well, if we take that third one from the top, where you actually look at any of these websites that are hosting these Word documents associated with Emotet, you'll find that they're actually legitimate websites. At no point have I seen in the Emotet infection process an actual server specifically spun up by the criminals themselves to host the malware. It's always been a legitimate but compromised website. Now, some of these, if you were to actually check their websites, you would find that they look like they've been abandoned, or they haven't been updated in years. And I don't exactly understand how that would happen, because you would think a hosting provider would pretty much cancel an account and take a server offline if nobody's paying attention to it or paying their bills. But apparently, in this internet we live in, there are hundreds of thousands probably, because I can literally go through every day and find hundreds of new websites every day associated with this campaign. That's just this campaign. That's not some of the other campaigns. Also just as big and as widespread as we see with this primeware that's being distributed on a day-to-day basis. But so I can do a spot check. So for this presentation, I took a look at the third one at ru-uk.net. So it's a legitimate site. Now, if you were to go to that URL that was up there today, you'll find that it's been taken down. So they fixed this issue. And you probably don't find that. And you think, what kind of a site is this? Especially with that little heart shape up there. You would think it's some sort of Russian-UK love connection. But it's not. It's just a blog, a Russian blog about living in the UK, about living in England, and what it's like, and all the pretty faces and that they have on another proof of the adage, I guess, that sex sells. So now if I were to look at, instead of Word documents, I use the same criteria and pull on the PE32, the Windows executable file. I did that on Tuesday, and here's a good example. Now these follow slightly different URL patterns, but these URL patterns, if you're actually plug that into your regular browser, you can get the Emotet binary. You'll notice that the first one at the top and the second one from the bottom are the same one. Vendendo.com, which is an Italian e-commerce site based in Rome. And so if you were to actually go to that domain right now, you would find that it has a message in Italian saying under construction or taken offline or something. So this website as well has been notified since I first saw it on Tuesday, hosting malware. So when I was setting this presentation up, I did a poll on Monday, the 26th, and it had literally several hundred hits on the Emotet binary, the Windows executable, or the Word documents. When I eliminated the duplicates, I found 220. Just that one day alone, 220 websites that were either mismanaged or abandoned, or nobody's taking care of them, that were apparently easily compromised by the criminals behind this campaign. So once again, I really can't emphasize how much a nearly unlimited supply of routine, regular websites that are out there that criminals can compromise. So these are hits that I did when I was searching through autofocus threat intelligence tools since January 1st through Monday the 26th of February. The guys that you can see there are Saturday and Sunday. So this generally follows a 5-day work week. Malware, where we'll see hits on port 80 for the various URLs that are used to distribute the malware. So I can't really tie them into the emails because the emails may have links to the malware, but that's separate. I could look at the emails that they are actually have the malware attached to them. I can give you actual specific email stats. But through this tool, I can only look at what's coming through on port 80 and see the URLs that are returning malware that we have identified as Emotet. Every once in a while, you'll see a gap. In this case, we saw about 4.5 weeks of low to nil activity. So in this case, there wasn't really any Emotet announcement being sent from January 9th through February 4th. But when it comes back strong. We generally see the most emails on either Monday or Tuesday, and it kind of tends to drop as the week progresses. Here's last week, where you can see Saturday and Sunday, we see a couple of hits. And it's probably from the emails that are around that people are just picking up. And I kind of wonder, out of all the customers that Palo Alto Networks has, are we really seeing, upwards of 2K plus people actually clicking on emails? I have a feeling that this is automated security systems that our customers have that are actually checking these emails and generating the traffic to see if they're actually malicious. So Emotet mouse spam is what I call botnet based. So if you to, for example, I've got 51 total examples on my March 1st blog of actual email examples of Emotet mouse spam. So if you look at the spreadsheets that I got included in that blog post, you'll see the received from line that indicates the mail server that that the email came from directly before it hit the recipient. And in each of those, they're almost always a different one. So these are, this is a botnet host. Compromised computers that are actually sending the context list, I imagine, or possibly compromised servers that are being set up specifically for the purpose of distributing stuff, or compromised specifically for. This mouse spam is botnet based, and like I said, it usually uses invoice themes. Activity follows generally a 5-day work week, and the Word documents and follow-up malware, malware are on legitimate but compromised websites. See as far as trends. Let's take a look at the infection traffic. I like some people, in order to understand malware, they'll reverse engineer it. They'll look at the code, try and break it down and see exactly what it does. And that's all well and good, but I like dynamic analysis, where I'm detonating the malware, I'm running it in a controlled environment to see what it calls out to. I like to do it live as well. With this crimeware stuff, with this general commodity malware, there's no reason I can't do it live. I'm not giving away anything. I'm not. It's not like it's a targeted attack against my organization, and I'm going to give something up by letting them know that I know that they're attacking me. This stuff is just widespread distribution. So here's an example of the network traffic from an infection on Tuesday, actually Monday night, early Tuesday morning UTC time. Zoom in a little bit on that. And here's what we have. The first HTTP request is a GET request to a compromised server that retrieves the Word document. The second HTTP request through ca3mylens.com is for the Emotet binary, Windows 32 execute. The rest of those are HTTP posts that are post-infection traffic from the infected host in my lab that's calling back and sending information, exfiltrating information, and receiving stuff in return to the command and control server. So if we were to look at that as a flow chart, the link from the email is one mark f42.ru. The website is up, but they got rid of the malware since I checked it on the email. You get that Word document, just like we saw earlier. You enable the macros, it will retrieve the Emotet malware, in this case, ca3mylens.com/whatever that is. String characters. ca3mylens.com, by the way, if you're actually to go to that page, you would see some weird code. So it's obvious that that site has been compromised. And it's also obvious, if you look through Google search history, that at least at one time it was a legitimate website, which makes me think that that's been abandoned. So in Wireshark, I'm going to TCP stream and take a closer look at the headers. Here's the initial download for the HTTP traffic of the Word document. So you've got a GET request. Your user agent is, in this case, the browser that I have on my Windows host that I did this with, which is Internet Explorer 11. The content type that will show is application MS Word. And the file name in the HTTP response headers will show service-invoice.com. Here's the HTTP GET request, the second one, to ca3mylens.com. Now, if you look up here at the top, there is no user agent. So with almost all web traffic, there should be some sort of user agent. So right there, that's a little fishy, a little suspicious. To see a URL like that, that's sort of the HTTP GET request, and no other headers or no other information in the HTTP GET request headers. However, in the response, the HTTP response headers will see a file name that is obviously an exe, application text stream for the content type, which is typical. And this web traffic is not in any way compressed. So we would actually see, if we follow the TCP stream, the ASCII representation of the bytes for a Windows executable file. The first 2 bytes of a Windows executable file, if anybody doesn't know, is represented by the ASCII characters MZ. That's always the case for any Windows executable file. And then, of course, you always see this program cannot be run in DOS mode. Interestingly enough, in this infection traffic that I got on Monday night, I can actually go into Wireshark and I can, since the Word document and the Emotet executable are sent in the clear, I can actually extract those from the traffic, assuming I have no packet links. So my March 1st blog post, as an example, similar to this, as far as the Emotet traffic, you can do the same thing. I would just caution anybody that thinks about doing that you're doing it on a host that's a controlled environment where you're not going to get infected, because this is malware. And here is the post-infection traffic. So we'll see HTTP post requests over TCP port 80. We'll see regular HTTP post requests not encrypted over TCP port 443. And we'll also see them on other non-standard ports like 41, 43, which we had earlier. There was one I did about a month ago. It was TCP port 7080. 7080. So it can be all over the place. Now, just because the traffic is encrypted doesn't mean that the data is is not somehow encoded or encrypted, which is what we see right here. So I personally haven't dived in deep enough to know exactly how this data is encoded or encrypted as it posted out to the server. Where you can see we're getting approximately 71 kilobytes of data returned back to the machine. It's also encoded or encrypted. In some cases, you'll see like a couple hundred kilobytes, or the one that I had on March 1st was approximately 550 kilobytes, if I remember correctly. And then that included malware that was sent to the machine, to my infected lab host. So we've got the network traffic. We know how that looks right now. So you've got some indicators any given day on somebody might be infected on your network. Well, what about the host, the actual infected host itself? With Emotet, it's relatively simple. A lot of malware samples I see, in order to stage their system, they'll use the Windows registry, not all of them, but a great deal of them. So where I've got this memorized by heart, the HTCU, HT current user, software, Microsoft, Windows, current version run. Because many times computers are getting infected in some sort of corporate environment where they don't have administrative privileges. So you pretty much have to operate within what that user has access to. So almost all the time, somewhere under the HT current user key will be some sort of registry update. Okay, and I'm not talking about some of the fancier malware that's out there that likes to store the binaries within the Windows registry. That's a completely different ballgame. But Emotet is not really that fancy. Emotet is really kind of straightforward in bare bones. It's the Emotet binary, the Windows executable, is always stored under the user's @data local Microsoft Windows directory with some random name. Not random characters, but just a random name. Something that you might see as a regular file name. On Tuesday, when I infected the lab host, one of the names I get routinely is schedulecart.exe. I would call it schedule cart, but for some reason it's missing the C. Now it's about a 50-50 shot whether these Emotet binaries, these executable files, will actually contain fake metadata. Right? In this case, it did. It's got a fake icon, and all the stuff that you see listed up there is fake metadata, except for the size and date modified. Everything there is fake. It's trying to come off as the Windows control panel executable in a thinly veiled attempt to hide itself. However, if you were to submit that sample to VirusTotal, you would find out it is definitely not Windows control panel, and you'll see it light up like a very red drenched Christmas tree. Prevention strategies. Out of curiosity, has anyone here in this audience actually seen a honest-to-God sample of Emotet out in the wild? You run across it? Does somebody get infected, or is it just something that you happen to slip through past the spam filters?
Infection.
Infection? Was it you, or was it somebody you know?
Yeah. It was textbook. Thought they had antivirus installed on all of their systems, had one system that wasn't accounted for, antivirus client was not active, definitions not updated, infected that system.
It's a textbook example of how to get infected with malware. Let me repeat some of that for the recording. So the person, that computer wasn't accounted for. They didn't, in the company network, they didn't keep their antivirus up to date. Maybe suppressed it because it was given them too many warnings that they had to update or something. And then they were click hacking. Right? It's like, why not? And really, the average user can easily be fooled by these types of emails. Because you figure out, what's the harm if I see what they want me to look at? It's like, what's the harm if I enable macros? you're not thinking from a paranoid enough mindset on the internet. So, what is the standard response if you get infected? Kind of like what I said earlier, the poisonous snake scenario, the re-image, right? You wipe the machine, you re-image, and then you have the user change all their passwords that they've ever used on that infected host. However, before that even happens, you would hope to prevent it in the first place. Now, what I will say is most decent spam filtering and virus filtering for emails, any commercial solution that I've seen, Emotet now spam get through. It's always been called. And so I've got access to virus total intelligence. And in cases now where you've got the PDF attachment, I can usually find a few emails that are sent by some organizations that are actually sending anything that they catch as spam or virus directly to virus total. And I can get a copy of that, which is very interesting. But you have to have spam filtering in place. If you're a home user, for example, like me, I have a Gmail account. So I generally don't have to worry about spam filtering for that because Gmail takes care of that for me. My wife uses Yahoo email. Yahoo generally takes care of that for me. If you're working for a company that has their own mail server, as long as you got some sort of commercial solution to filter your email traffic or spam filtering, you probably won't see it. You probably won't see Emotet. But it's a cat and mouse game. So the criminals are always trying to stay one step ahead of the security vendors. Right? So they're tweaking their emails, they're tweaking the malware, they're adjusting it just enough to avoid detection. So it is conceivable that emails might slip past the spam filter. So your next layer of defense is training and awareness. So it really doesn't take much awareness, I think, in order to understand what's going on and to recognize an email like these Emotet emails. And just not click on it in the first place. But you always have somebody, usually with an organization, that will, that will disable their antivirus. And, they'll be click happy enough to go through it. So if that's the case, hopefully they do have antivirus enabled and it's kept up to date. All right. So everything there for the top three is something that can easily apply to the home users as well as people in a business, at a company or a corporation. The core solution there is really for enterprise security solutions, right? So my employer, Palo Alto Networks, is one of many vendors, that has a security solution that will monitor your environment. Because if you're not looking at your environment, you don't know what's going on. So it can be something as simple as like a McAfee, or is it EPO orchestrator or something like that? I forget what it is, but where it's keeping an eye on the endpoint solutions. Or whether you're just monitoring system logs and collecting those. I prefer some sort of network security monitoring where you're actually monitoring the network traffic. But organizations can only use what they can afford. But security solutions, if you're a company, some sort of company, that especially if you're running your own mail servers, you definitely need to keep an eye on what's coming in and what's going on. And that is about it. Covered the various types of email, what Emotet actually is, what we're seeing as far as the malicious emails that are spreading Emotet, what Emotet infection traffic typically looks like, at least as of March 2018, artifacts on infected hosts, and some of the common sense solutions for preventing Emotet infection. Does anybody have any questions? Sir?
Does the exfiltration data for traffic look about the same? Is there any other? Exfiltration, so if you actually, it's sending the bank of information as captures. Is that what it is?
That is correct. The question was, is the exfiltration data, is that actually sending the stolen login credentials and everything on the computer? Yes, that definitely is. Every once in a while, you'll see an artifact pop up if you're monitoring the system where it's, the one that I did last night was, it was literally, there was a text file that popped up and disappeared, and it was a line about Microsoft Outlook for the contacts list. So I would imagine if you're infected with Emotet and you're set up with a email client on your infected Windows host that is connected to an actual email server, you're probably going to be spamming out. But the only problem is I don't have environment isn't set up to fully check that out. Any other questions? If not, I certainly appreciate your time talking with you guys.
Did you see any other trends in the infected web application websites? Like, they might have shown that they were using specific vulnerabilities in order to deploy it out, like a WordPress compromise or Drupal or something like that?
Good question. So the question was, did we notice anything as far as the compromised servers that is hosting malware? Was there anything common to them? I haven't really dug into that very well yet, but the only thing I can say is that they're poorly maintained. So I haven't noticed, I've done some spot checking, but I haven't really noticed the theme just yet, but I haven't really dug into it. So, so it is, I want to say it is trivially easy for criminals to set up a botnet to scan a large block of IP spaces or essentially the entire internet to see what's out there that's vulnerable. So it really doesn't have to be any specific thing, but I don't know with Emotet that the compromised servers are being compromised any specific way. Right? If it's one vulnerability that's being exploited by the whole campaign, or if it's a number of them, my guess would be it's a number.
Yeah. Look, another question I have for you. On the Microsoft enabling macros.
Yes.
Have you ever seen anything from them that might lead towards an indicator in addition to that or network communication? I'm surprised that they don't, well, even after enabling macros, don't pop as soon as they see extra I've never heard Microsoft
Enable macros if there's a network connection going out immediately there.
right, or even
Or bringing up something like PowerShell.
solution.
Solution.
Okay, that would be like install, they can verify. Right.
So what was that?
I'm actually surprised that, sorry, he had asked you about something even outside of the DLP, as far as the data loss prevention solution that was good, which is along exactly the same lines I'm asking. I'm actually surprised that Microsoft hasn't done that. Yeah, oh wait, don't show me again. Even at least one alert once a Word document tries to communicate outside the machine.
Here's how Microsoft does it, at least as of a default system with Word 2010 or 2016. It's up to 2016. I forgot 2013. So with the current version of Microsoft Office, in this case, once you download a Word document, you're going to get a warning. You get several warnings along the way in a properly patched system, even if it's running default settings. So you get what some people call the mark of the internet, right? You will get a warning that says, hey, this was downloaded from the internet. You even want to open this document.
Right. That's actually like an executable, right? They're saying it was downloaded?
Well, not the executable, even the Word document.
Okay.
And then if you open it up, because it was downloaded from the internet, it would be in protected mode. So if I'm remembering this correctly, you see, the problem that I have is that I specifically designed my lab host to be vulnerable. So people come in and it's like, well, are regular users protected? And that's not really my specialty to understand if regular users are protected, even though it's a very pertinent question. I'm curious. I want to see the indicators. I want to see what a full infection chain looks like. So it's hard when you're looking at it from that viewpoint. It's very hard to actually remind yourself that hey, you really might want to check this against a normal system to see what types of things you have to bypass in order to infect yourself. But with an Emotet malware infection, with this type of malware infection, you really have to click yourself quite a ways through at least 3 or 4 warnings.
That totally answers my question. Absolutely. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Well, if not, I certainly enjoyed talking to you guys, and hope to be back again next year. Thank you.